And we should talk about Poilievre, because when we're talking about Trudeau, we really are talking about a dead man walking. Yesterday, his government almost collapsed.
Yes, it's done that a number of times without him actually disappearing. No, I understand.
Wow.
I understand. For everybody watching and listening, his deputy prime minister resigned yesterday, also as minister of finance, and like the fifth powerful woman, so to speak, in his feminist cabinet that has had to abscond because, well, for a variety of reasons. One of them apparently being that Justin Trudeau finds it impossible to deal with women who have anything approximating their own opinions.
And just for fun, her replacement, Dominic LeBlanc, used to be Trudeau's babysitter. Now, just imagine if Donald Trump appointed his babysitter as the Secretary of the Treasury. The Yanks would have a lot of fun with that.
You don't think being Trudeau's babysitter qualifies him to be finance minister of a G7? Just wondering.
I don't know.
Yeah, well, that also speaks to this weird. We could throw this into the mix too. I don't know what you think about this, but it seems to me as well that the way that Canada is constituted, especially with its emphasis on bilingualism, that it dooms the entire country to domination by the 13% of French Canadian bilingual. It's what is it in Canada? That
here's the thing. The other thing that Americans have to understand is that Canada is a bilingual constitutional monarchy, one of the most decentralized federal systems on earth, that is thinly populated and spread out across the top of the most dynamic cultural phenomenon in the history of nation states. So the role of a Canadian prime minister has always been to unite the country, to keep, the role of federal policy has always been to allow Canadians to have a conversation amongst themselves. It's why we fund the CBC and the Canadian Council for the Arts and what have you. And it's a difficult thing to do because we are very, very culturally diverse. I mean, in every traditional sense of the word, the French-speaking people of Quebec, the Pour Laine Quebecers, are a nation in every conventional sense of the word. And Canada is, I guess we're kind of a nation, but it's complicated. I mean, it is vastly complicated, and it's a huge landscape. So the function of a prime minister has to be to unite the country.
Yes, under something approximating a national identity.
That's
which
right.
Trudeau
something core,
dispensed with
something that
immediately.
When push comes to shove, it's possible that we might be able to muster fire in the belly.
Right.
The defense of this
or maybe even just the desire to keep the country together and functioning.
Quite so.
If we couldn't go all the way out for passion.
That's the other thing about Trudeau, is that it's a complete rejection of that, a complete reversal of that. It's just like, meh, we're a post-national country. And immigration, fine, you want to come in, yes. Dominic Barton, who ended up being our ambassador to China, the guy who came from China's McKinsey and Associates, and who crafted Trudeau's campaign material at the very, very, very beginning of his rise to politics, says, we should actually have about 500,000 people coming into Canada every year. We should aim for 100 million. We should at least double our population. In the next generation or two.
Well, we've had more than 500,000 coming in. Right?
Yes, we have.
Yeah, by a substantial number.
We don't know how many people live in this country, Jordan.
Yeah.
We know from a recent census it's about 41 million. But on top of that, we have, for instance, over the next 12 months, 5 million people who live in Canada on various kinds of temporary permits and so on.
So it's 1/8 of the population.
Within the next 12 months, those permits expire. Then there's another between 50 and 500,000, according to the official guess of the Immigration and Refugees and Citizenship Department, who are what they call out-of-contract workers, which are undocumented workers. Now, for Americans to hear these numbers, America's 10 times as many people, it's 10 times as populous. So, just do the math, right? Yeah. If there's 5 million, if there are 50 million American or people living in the United States whose temporary permits expire within the next 12 months and who have all given every impression that they do not intend to leave.
Yes. Why would they leave?
So Pierre Poilievre's coming along, right?
Yeah.
And the interesting thing about Pierre Poilievre, this goes back to what we were talking about earlier about language. And I go, is this liberal or, what the hell? Pierre Poilievre, when he talks about housing, when he talks about employment, when he talks about access to healthcare, when he talks about wages, he's Bernie Sanders. The Americans have to understand this. Try to imagine Bernie Sanders. I mean, and also the trade union vote has gone to
the
conservatives. Gone to Poilievre. This has never happened before.
Yeah.
The working class vote has gone to Pierre Poilievre. I don't know. I mean, I'm not a partisan conservative. I don't know if I've ever written a conservative sentence in my life, by the way, although most of my friends seem to be conservatives. I don't know how that happens.
Well, the whole world's upside down, so that's not surprising.
So what the hell?
Whatever the classic political distinctions were 15 years ago, whatever they are now bears no relationship to what they were 15 years ago.
So my great fear, and I'll close with this, and you can challenge me. Tell me I'm wrong, or if you like, whatever. You can argue. I think we've got about a year or two before everything starts to come unglued. And I'm very worried about this. I've always been an optimist. I've been an inveterate optimist. But I actually haven't seen in Poilievre a degree of sophistication in comprehending the nature and the scope of what he's going to be facing when he. Well,
I don't know if he can. I don't know if he can comprehend it. I mean, I regard myself as a moderately sophisticated political observer, and you've made me more pessimistic today.
Sorry.
Well, I was already very concerned about the state of Canada because I think that, well, I'll give you an example, and you probably know this already, but before Justin took office, GDP per capita in Canada was approximately at parity with the US. Okay, now our richest province, Ontario, the inhabitants of our richest province by per capita GDP are poorer than the average inhabitant of Mississippi.
I thought it was Alabama. Is it Mississippi? Same.
Last thing the people in our richest province are poorer than the people in the U.S. poorest state, right? That's a 9-year decline. It's an absolute bloody catastrophe. And we know Trudeau just announced a $62 billion deficit yesterday, which was $22 billion higher than the pessimistic estimate that his finance minister had come up with a few months ago. Whatever state we think the country is in is nowhere near as grim as the state the country's actually in. And what my fear for Poilievre is that he's going to take power in October, because I think Trudeau will hang on till then, but maybe not. We'll see. And things will be revealed to be demonstrably worse than they are on multiple dimensions. You've outlined like 6 in our discussion today. And he will be saddled with the blame. And so he'll have a 4-year term while he muddles through the absolute bloody nightmare that Trudeau has left. And then the Liberals are connive their way back into power.
No, that's never going to happen.
Okay, so you're less pessimistic on that front than me.
I mean, the Liberals might, but it might be some iteration of a Liberal Party